When a woman shared her bed with her beloved dog for several months, she considered it an entirely innocent and endearing habit. Little did she know that a shocking revelation would soon shake her to her core. Julia had cherished dogs since her childhood. Therefore, when she encountered a charming German shepherd named Bronx at a nearby shelter, she made the decision to adopt him and invite him into her recently acquired apartment. After bringing Bronx home and acquainting him with his new surroundings, Julia was thrilled to witness how swiftly the dog adapted to his fresh start. While he initially displayed caution and timidity, it didn't take long for Bronx to romp joyfully around the apartment, barking with delight as he embraced his new forever home. Julia was overjoyed, as this was precisely what she had missed about having a canine companion. However, the following morning brought an unexpected surprise. Julia woke to find Bronx peacefully asleep beside her in bed. Initially, she dismissed it as a one-time occurrence, attributing it to an isolated incident, and gently guided Bronx back to his cozy sleeping spot on the plush rug near the bedroom door. To her amazement, the same scenario repeated itself over the next several days. Regardless of her efforts to encourage Bronx to stay on the rug, he always found his way back to the bed. However, Julia couldn't bring herself to tell Bronx off or punish him for his seemingly innocent habit. Instead, she gradually came to accept it as a charming quirk of her beloved pet. Besides, it was nice that the two of them felt so comfortable together. For the next few weeks, life continued to progress smoothly for Julia and her furry companion. There were no hiccups, and everything was happy and fun. Taking care of Bronx became something she found a lot of joy and fulfillment in. However, something strange started to happen. Julia started feeling extremely exhausted and lethargic in a way that she had never felt before. She was usually an active and healthy woman, so this change of mood was not like her. Even getting out of bed became a strenuous and arduous task, despite the fact that she had always been a morning person who could easily wake up without an alarm clock. Something had really changed. Julia, at first, ignored it and thought it was probably a result of her monotonous work routine. After all, work can get boring and drag your life down sometimes, but Julia carried on with her life, doing her best to push through her fatigue. However, as her well-being continued to spiral downwards, and she got weaker and weaker, she decided it was time to head to the doctor to see if he could diagnose her. Visiting a doctor, she underwent a series of tests and procedures, but they found nothing out of the ordinary. Confused and frustrated, Julia mentioned her usual sleeping arrangement with Bronx, hoping it might provide a clue. She wasn't sure what kind of clue it would offer, but still, it was worth a shot. And in fact, without a moment's hesitation, the doctor came to the conclusion that Julia was more than likely allergic to dog hair. Because of this, he prescribed her several medications to suppress her allergic reactions. On top of that, the doctor advised her to minimize contact with Bronx until her symptoms had lessened. It was strange, and Julia didn't quite understand how she was allergic to dog hair now, when for the longest time, she had been absolutely fine around dogs. The doctor patiently explained that these kinds of allergies can develop at any time in life, so it wasn't a massive shock that someone who was once so close and fond of dogs would now develop an unfortunate and ill-timed allergic reaction to them. Understanding that the doctor knew best and that she should follow his advice, Julia returned home and diligently stuck to her courses of medication. She even tried to persuade Bronx to stop sleeping in her bed, though that was far easier said than done. He desperately wanted to lay there with her, but Julia had to stay strong and keep him out of the bed. For a few days, she experienced some relief, and Bronx eventually started to obediently sleep in the corridor outside of the bedroom door, as instructed. Admitting to herself that the doctor was probably right, and that she was allergic to dog hair, Julia eagerly completed the course of medication in hopes of reclaiming her once energetic self. Unfortunately, the relief was short-lived. Bronx, being the cheeky dog that he was, would occasionally sneak back onto the bed at night, and Julia's symptoms returned with a vengeance as quickly as she had gotten better. She spiraled once more. Moreover, her weakness, lethargy, and apathy worsened, turning her once pleasant life into a living nightmare. She nearly lost her job several times due to her tired demeanor. Julia was left feeling perplexed and desperate, unsure of where to turn for help. But this time, even Bronx was starting to show signs of discomfort. He walked with a strange gait and would always curl up with his hind legs close to his body when he lay down next to Julia. Something was up, and she needed to find out what it was, but she was simply too lethargic to even go to the vet and had to take an entire week off work. She thought a period of rest would help her get back on her feet, but unbeknownst to her, she was seriously risking her life. Thankfully, hope arrived in the form of a veterinarian friend who paid her a visit, deeply concerned by Julia's deteriorating state. Upon learning that it all began after she adopted Bronx, the veterinarian asked Julia to bring the dog to his clinic to confirm or dispel his suspicions. With no other options, Julia reluctantly agreed, hoping for a breakthrough. He ran all kinds of tests and checks on Bronx and left no stone unturned in his search for answers. Several days later, when the veterinarian finally called with the test results, he revealed that Julia had contracted a dangerous disease from Bronx called brucellosis, which would have been impossible to detect without specific research. It was a disease that had been hidden in plain sight and that he had probably contracted at the shelter. The close contact she had had with her beloved pet, particularly during the nighttime when they would share a bed, had unknowingly exposed her to this nasty condition. The veterinarian urgently prescribed a strong course of antibiotics for both Julia and Bronx, emphasizing that had she waited any longer, the consequences would have been dire. Julia was terrified by the revelation, but at the same time grateful that they had gotten to the root of the problem. In dogs, brucellosis can cause several reproductive issues. Bronx was having trouble walking because of swelling around his privates, but thankfully the disease was still in the early stages, and he would heal completely with no consequences provided he took the antibiotics. In people, brucellosis can turn into meningitis, sepsis, endocarditis, and osteomyelitis, inflammations of the meninges, brain, heart, and bones. The same disease can also cause a strong depression, of which Julia's lethargic state was just the first step. She had truly risked her life. Adhering faithfully to the veterinarian's instructions, Julia promptly commenced her medication regimen. She ensured that Bronx also received his prescribed treatment. As time passed, the potent antibiotics began to provide her with significant relief, alleviating the fatigue and weariness that had plagued her. Subsequent tests, conducted several weeks later, confirmed the complete eradication of the disease from her system. On the day she received this news, Julia finally breathed a sigh of relief and warmly embraced Bronx, who unintentionally had nearly cost her life. Her emotions were not tinged with anger, rather an overwhelming sense of gratitude. From that moment onward, she allowed her beloved dog to reclaim his place beside her on the large, inviting bed, deeply appreciating his unwavering love despite the unexpected and perplexing consequences. Julia's experience served as a poignant reminder of the importance of taking necessary precautions when caring for a pet, even when faced with unforeseen challenges and unexpected adjustments. As she regained her strength and recovered from the ordeal, her bond with Bronx only grew stronger. They became each other's steadfast pillars of support, forever treasuring the invaluable lessons learned during their harrowing and bewildering journey together. Have you ever come across a condition as uncommon and peculiar as the one Julia experienced? If you had suspected your dog was the source of your distress, would you have considered parting ways with them? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.